All right, so now the next thing we need to do is to generate our high poly. Okay, so I'm taking the low poly construction box, and I'm going to grab that, and then I'm just going to clone that. So right click, clone, make sure it's a copy, and then I'm going to put those in its own layer. And this is going to be the high poly. Okay, and then let's go ahead and rename these. So let's go to Tools, Rename, and we're going to put a prefix in front. Let's call this high. I was going to type in HI and an underscore, and then I want to remove the numbers. So I'm going to remove 3 digits, and there we go. And then these will all be labeled as high. And this is pretty easy to adjust, because all you're really doing is needing to change this chamfer, okay, this angle chamfer to a fillet. So usually 2 segments here will give it a nice rounded look, okay. And then we want to turn in this inset, because what will happen is because this is rounded and this is rounded, it'll kind of have it, you get some shading a little bit, which will kind of bow the board. So we go down here and we click on this inset, and when we do that, I'm going to turn off the wire when you see this. See how this is kind of shaded a little bit, and when I do this, it flattens it out, okay, which is what I want it to do. And usually this is a little can be a little bit big, so usually if you just copy the amount that's on the chamfer and you put it into the inset, then that will flatten that out pretty nicely. So it goes from there to there. All right, and since we did all of this as instances, and it looks like this one's not an instance. Let's go back and do that. So I'm just going to come in here and let's copy this. And then I'm just going to go to this one and dump that off and paste that instance, and then that'll fix that one. So it's going to make sure that these are all done correctly. And they are. And so there we go. There's the high poly. So that's why I build it the way I do with the chamfer modifier, which makes it very easy to switch between a high poly and a low poly, because we're going to bake this nice highlight that comes into this, and we're going to bake that down to put onto the low poly. Okay, the next thing we need to do is put some nails on here. Okay, so I'm just going to isolate this, and we're going to make it with a cylinder. So when we're going to do our primitives over here, so I'm going to make a cylinder, you can click this auto grid right here. And what's good about that is it'll like be able, I can create it right on top of this surface. So I'm just going to click and hold down and drag and then pull out a little bit. And I'm creating a little circle kind of thing. Okay, and because I'm doing that auto grid, then it'll put it right onto that surface. And then if I click again, you want to get in the habit of going here and turn this off, because it'll kind of come back to haunt you later if you don't turn it off. Okay, so let's put my material on this. And all right, so we can put a subdivision on this, but let's go ahead and just all right, let's do it this way. So we can go into this segments here. We don't need all these segments, so I'm just going to click that. And let's go ahead and give it, well, we'll just leave it at 18 sides. That's fine. We do want cap segments, okay, like so. And then isolate that. We don't really need this back part here, so I can just grab this vertex, hold down the control key, grab polygon, and then grow it and then delete that. We don't really need that. So the two things we need is we want this to flare out a little bit, even though we know a nail doesn't do that, but because the way a normal cast, we want the back to be a little flared out. So we'll just go to edge here and then just scale it out just a little bit, something like that. We're trying to make it so that when we're looking down, we see a little bit of depth to it like that. Okay. And then what we want to do is put a couple locking loops because we're going to subdivide on this. So let's open up our ribbon here and let's put us a locking loop. So say you're about there and there. We're wanting that to round pretty good. So be sure to deselect and turn off, and then we're just going to put some kind of subdivision. It doesn't matter if it's a mesh smooth or a turbo smooth, and we'll do a couple iterations. And then that'll give us this nice depth here, and then it'll give us a nice highlight on it, which is what we're wanting. Okay, so let's end that. Go back. So that's a pretty good position for that. Okay, so let's just isolate these. All right, then we'll just make clones of these, and we just want them to be instances. That way, if I change one, I can change all of them. And then we can make another set in here. And let's go ahead and make 3 copies. And then hold down the shift key and copy and put another set down here. Now the other thing that I would do is just mess with these a little bit so they're not all perfectly aligned with each other. So that's just a little thing that you can do, is to make them seem a little off, because that's what they would be. So just mess with those a little bit. And then we want these a little bit different, because we can see these the same on one side, whereas the ones that are going to be on the opposite side, we can't. Just small little things. Okay, let's end our isolation and make sure these all kind of line up. These probably all should be pulled back just a little bit. More like that. That looks pretty good. Okay, and then I want to put all of these cylinders and let's go ahead and put those in a layer. These are my nails. Okay, and then let's go ahead and let's just we can grab all of those, and let's just put a symmetry on that, and it needs to be on the Y, and then we'll want to slide that back. We can see it at the top. Oops, they're down here. Okay. And then you can right click, go to move, and go to your settings, and you can see here it's going to be on the y-axis. So now I can get in here closer. And then we're going to move these on the y-axis, and I can get it. And they don't have to be perfectly right up on it because they're floaters, and so they don't have to be perfectly right on it. Okay, and that gets those. And so let's name these. So I'm going to pick all of these. Let's go to our rename objects, and we're going to call these nails underscore side. So these are the side nails, and we want these numbered, and boom, they'll all be. All right, so now I'm going to take one of those, and I'm going to hold down the shift key and drag and copy it and make a copy on this one. Dump that symmetry off of it. Okay, and then let's go here. And then I'm going to rotate this. Make sure I have my angle snap on. And then I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees. And then let's go to the front. Okay, so little nails down here. Let's go to the top. And a little thing you can do on which will help you sometimes is, since this is on top of this, when I start moving it, I won't be able to see it. If I pick this and I go Alt X, it turns it into an X-ray, and then I can see what I'm doing. Okay, Shift, copy that, pick both of them, Alt deselect this, Shift, pick these, make 2 copies, or 3 rather. There we go. Okay, then I'm going to pick these. Oop, I needed another one in there, didn't I? Go there. Okay. I'm going to freeze this so I don't actually keep picking it. And then I can just move these around a little bit, just so they're not so much exactly the same. Okay, and then I can do a symmetry on these. And it's going to be on the X. And see how they disappear? That's because on my symmetry, I need to do flip. And now you'll be able to see them. And then the same thing here. Go to your move, and it'll be on the X. And then I can move them into place. Like that. There we go. Okay, then we're going to call these. Let's go rename this. And, oops, I closed it. Okay, we're not going to change the base name. Let's see. We want to add a suffix. And we want to remove 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So remove 7 underscore bottom and number it. And boom. There, and those are all renamed. I can also create a layer for this. And this is my bottom nails. And let's make a group for this. I say group, a layer. Okay, this is my side nails. And then both of those will go inside of my high poly. Okay. All right. Let's turn this X-ray off. Oh. I've got it frozen. Unfreeze it. Freeze all. There we go. Okay. So now I've got my nails that I need. Okay, this all looks good. So there's my high poly. All right, so then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to make another copy of this. Let's go do a save real quick. So now I'm going to make a clone of this and then put those in their own layer. And then what I want to do here is, let's see, I'm just going to convert all of these to edible polys. So I'm just baking all of that stuff in so I don't have all that overhead. And then for this, that I want to attach all these together. So I'm just going to pick one of these. It doesn't matter. And then let's go in here and hit attach, and attach by list, and attach all these together so it's one thing. And then we're going to call this high poly bake. Excuse me. This is my what I'm going to use to bake with. Okay, so I have a high poly bake. This is my game ready, which is the low poly baked and unwrapped. And I'm going to go ahead and bake this unwrap in there, just so you understand. If I go ahead and convert it to a poly, then that's permanently baked into it. I can always get back to it later if I want to change it by putting an unwrap back on top of it, and then it's going to take me right back into it. Okay, but first I just want to go ahead and bake that in case that I actually do something, I don't lose my unwrap. Okay, so these are the two things that I'm going to be using to bake my normals with. All right, so now the first thing I need to do is I need to start breaking this apart, because if I try to cast normals, they will leak on top of each other. So what I want to do is come in and start pulling these apart at a sub-object level, okay? But I don't really want to do it on the edit poly itself. I want to do it on a separate edit poly on top of it, a modifier. Now the reason I want to do that is because once I do this at a sub-object level, if I ever turn this off, then it goes back together. Okay, so that's what I'm going to be doing. All right, so we have to break this apart. So I'm going to take and pull this out. So I'm going to go right click to move. And you might want to, according to how complex your model is, you might want to write some of this down, because whatever we do to the low poly, we have to do the same thing to the high poly. So I'm going to come in here, and I can see this is on the X. So you can see my gizmo here, and I can make it bigger. By the way, your plus and minus keys makes the gizmo bigger or smaller. And I can see it's on the X, and since the arrow's pointing this way, that's positive. So I'm going to sit here and go, okay, move this out 1 foot. Okay, and then I usually do the opposite of what I'm going to do on the other side. So this would be -1. Okay. And then I can move all of these out since there's space between them. And really, even if there wasn't space, these would probably be okay this way. This is on the Y, and so I'm going to move this out 1 foot. And then I'm going to pick these over here, and these will be a -Y. And now this is broken apart that I can cast normals on this. But at a later point, I can turn it off and it'll go back together. Okay, now we want to do the exact same thing to the high poly. High poly will be a little bit more of an issue because we got the nails on it. Okay, so same thing. Put an edit poly modifier on this. So here we go. Here, 1 foot. Here, -1 foot. And then in this case, I'll pick these from the top. And then hold down the Alt and get rid of that selection. Okay, so now these are all moved together. So the Y, 1 foot out. Oops. Let's move that back. I accidentally had some of the nails on the bottom grabs there. Hold down my Alt key, make sure I don't have those picked. There we go. So now 1 foot out. Okay. And okay. This will be -1. There's nothing magical about 1. I mean, if I have a bunch of things, this might be 0.5, which is 6 inches, 1 foot, 2 foot. It doesn't matter as long as they're just pulled out from each other when we're going to do the baking. Be sure you're also moving them at a sub-object level, because if you don't move them at a sub-object level, then when you turn this off, they'll stay apart. Okay, so now I've got the low poly and the high poly in the exact same place to do my baking. Okay, so we're going to pick the crate, and now we're ready to do baking. Okay, I'm going to do that as a separate video. So this is how you get it all prepped at this point. All our modeling is ready and to do our baking of our normals. All right, hope that helped you. Thank you.